Good afternoon, everyone, and I'm so excited for this presentation. I cannot wait to hear Jim's life journey. I just want to give you a little bit of background before I tell you a little bit of some interesting facts about Jim. About a year ago when I started, I met Jim for the first time. We were going, I think, to a trip dining out, and we sat next to each other on the shuttle bus and got to know each other. He was mentioning a little bit about his life, and I was fascinated. And we decided let's try getting something like this together. And this past May, we did one at Heritage Village at Cooper Center, and it was magical. And we didn't forget having anything here. We just didn't have the capacity over there. So I was talking with Jim to try to get something over here, and today's the day. So I want you to be super excited, just like I am. You're going to be thrilled. A lot of good stuff. So apologize for the sound. I think we're good. So just a couple of little interesting facts about Jim. He was born on Halloween in 1933, so he just celebrated a birthday, everyone. He was in West Virginia, and passengers, he grew up in Western Pennsylvania. He was graduated from Penn State with a degree in electrical engineering. He entered the U.S. Air Force and spent 4 years, including Alaska and Guam. Then he came to Lehigh Valley in 1959 to work for Bethlehem Steel Corporation. And in 1992, after nearly 34 years, Jim elected to take an early retirement. So guess, this is great, I tell you. 5 days after retirement, he began his 23-year journey with his career as a cruise line director, a dance host, and tour escort, That is what he will be talking to you about today. And so he's been a resident here at Moravian Hall Square since 2016. And as a side note, he did write a book about his travels with the cruise lines. And hopefully you have a ticket. Everyone has a blue ticket, because we'll be doing a draw prizing later. All right? So if everybody will please welcome, join your hands together for Jim Wood.
Well, thank you, Michelle. I'm not sure you can hear me in the back. How are we back there? No? We're going to... Eric, where are you, sir? Okay, you want me to try it again? I'm trying. Okay, I can hear it coming up now. Is it up? In the back. How are you in the back now? Do I hear any nods? I guess I don't. Can you hear me in the back? No? You can now, I'll bet. Okay. I think that's about the best we're going to get, I think. How's that in the back now? I hear a little ringing. Do you? I'm hearing some ringing. I really like to use this lapel mic because it leaves my hands free to talk. Okay. All right, I guess that's it. First of all, thank you, Michelle, for that splendid introduction. I hardly recognized myself. And we have a nice crowd here today. I wanted to say to you, if you came here with high expectations, then I admire your optimism. So, since it was announced that I would be speaking here today, I was anxious to learn if there might be an interest. And I can tell you that I was asked about it almost every day this week, almost Monday, almost Tuesday, almost Wednesday. But today is Thursday, and so let's get on with it. And here's a little background. In the mid-1980s, the Royal Cruise Line, which was a high-end cruise line, decided that they wanted to enhance the experiences of the ever-increasing number of single and unattached ladies who were traveling on cruises. So they engaged the services of gentlemen like myself to be dance partners and to socialize with these ladies. And it really took off, and other cruise lines also picked up on it. And if you if you could dance and you were 55, you had to be 55 or older. You had to be single. That's very important. And you took a dance test and an interview, and then you got a chance to go out on the ships. So I did that, and this is my home away from home for 23 years. Pretty good home. Took 175 cruises on 7 different cruise lines on 15 different ships. And today I will tell you just a little bit about those 23 years as a cruise host and a land tour escort. You might ask, what are the duties of a cruise line host? Well, I'm going to tell you. We were considered to be part of the ship's staff, and so we were actually to interact with all the passengers, guests, and whoever might be on, and just make life easier for them on this great cruise that they were going to embark upon. So here are the few duties. Whoops, I went backwards, didn't I? Hello. Why would this happen? Huh, Eric. It worked in practice, and there we are. There's something, if it can go wrong, it will. Is that what they say? Okay, here we are. We're back on track, I think. Dancing. Dancing was the biggest thing we were engaged to do, and we would address the unescorted ladies and ask them to dance, and made for a better cruise for them. And we also instructed dancing on some cruise lines. And this is Ginger from Florida. Ginger and I were in a dance contest, and we came in number 5. And Ginger was she traveled a lot, so I saw her a few more times over the years. And each time she'd remind me that we came in 5th, and guess whose fault she said that was? That was my fault. This was a pleasant duty. This is where we got to host the dining table for the passenger guests. A maitre d' would put us at a table, and we would act as the host of the table. And this group was one that I was with. They're all laughing. They must be having a good time, huh? I'll tell you why, because it's formal night, and I bought the drinks for the table for the whole night, so they were really happy. Another thing that we were available for was to have photo shoots with guests. These were the ladies that we danced with, and many of them would want to have their picture taken with the guy that they danced with while they were on the cruise. And I suspect that they took it home to show their friends and family what a good time they had, and this was a guy that they danced with. I'm sure that's what they did. This was Pat from Columbus, Ohio. Oh, here's one. This is great. This lady is really great. Her name is Lee. She was a true California girl. You can't see it, but there's a little bauble around her neck that's about as big as a quail's egg. I don't think she had any trouble affording cruises. So I had my picture taken with Lee, and I said, oh, you want to take this back to show your family and your friends? She says, no, I want to take it to show my boyfriend because he wouldn't come with me on this cruise. There's another duty that we had, which was sort of interesting. We would escort guests on tours, including shopping. These are 2 Japanese ladies who I danced with, Mitzi and Keiko, and we were on a tour in Hong Kong. We hosts would be asked to go on the bus, so there would be someone they would identify the people that are on the bus if they had a minor problem. Basically, our job was 30 people got off the bus, 30 people got back on. So we were there just as a fallback position for the passengers. At noontime, they wanted to go shopping, and they asked me if I would accompany them, and I said, of course. And guess who got to carry the packages back to the bus? This was a favorite thing of mine, interacting with celebrity guests. Can anyone tell me who this is? I didn't hear you. And she was starred in what? Hello, Dolly, absolutely right. She was a genuine person, and as anyone you could meet, and sadly she passed away about 6 years ago. Here I am with Hank Aaron, the Milwaukee Braves. Aside from being an all-star baseball player, he was a human rights activist. And he'd come and talk a little bit about maybe racism in professional sports. He was a very popular celebrity guest to have aboard. I might add at this point that each of these celebrities would hold a session much like we have today and tell something about their past. And at the end, they'd have a Q&A session, and I will too. So get your questions in your mind, because we'll have time for questions and answers after I'm done. Here is my favorite. This is Rita Moreno, Broadway star, Anita from the West Side Story. She was now 93 years old, still going strong, and you may have seen her on the red carpet in last year's Oscars. Here's some other that I rubbed elbows with some people. Jonathan Winters, you always remember him, the comedian. I actually saw him having a group of people talk to plants, and he was pretty good. Barbara Walters, not anything like I remember her from TV, completely different person. George McGovern, senator from South Dakota. James Carville and Mary Madeline, Democrat, Republican. When they'd get up in front of the group, one would be here and one would be there, and it was like a comedy thing. They would keep throwing barbs back and forth. They were really terrific. John Shule, many of you remember him as the undefeated Miami Dolphins. Jack Hanna, many documentaries on PBS about Africa and his tour. One of my favorites is Shirley Jones. Shirley Jones was born in Belle Vernon, Pennsylvania, about 5 miles from where I was growing up. And she and I sat down over coffee and talked about kids growing up in the steel mill town and coal mills of western Pennsylvania. Billy Casper, not quite as well known as Nicholas and Palmer and Player, but just as good. He and his wife Shirley were Mormons, and they adopted 11 children. Okay, land adventures. I'm going to now take you to some of the places I have visited as a tour escort and on my independent travels around the world after I take a sip of water. Overview of Monaco. What do you think of when you think of here Monaco? Princess Grace from Philadelphia, married Prince Rainier, 1956. Unfortunately, she died in a car crash in 1982 at the age of 52. What else do you hear about Monaco? Anything? Gambling, okay. And here is the harbor at Monte Carlo. One yacht is bigger than the other because the rich and the famous come here to gamble, and they also come here for the annual Monaco Grand Prix race, car race. About Monaco is the second smallest country in the world, and it's number one in per capita income. I think you don't have to imagine much to guess that's right. So, and here's the 1929 Monaco Grand Prix racer. 1929 was the first year that they had races in Monaco, and this was one of the racers they had. And I'm guessing Walter Kramer, you might like to drive this. Think so, Walter? You think so? I think so. Where do you think this might be? Any questions? Any answers? Mexico, that could be, but it's not. This is in Guatemala, and this is a Mayan pyramid that's being restored, and it's in the city of Tikal, Guatemala, which at one time it was founded 3,000 years ago, and the restoring started in 1950, and it's believed it covered 6 square miles and had a population of 50,000 people. This is 3,000 years ago. And this is really a wonderful place to tour. Recovering Mayan relics and restoring cities is a big deal in Central America. And that's where this structure was. This is a marketplace in San Marcos, Guatemala. You can see the potatoes and the tomatoes and the green, the vegetables. And every little town in Central America has one of these. And it's a place to go shopping, but it's also a place where people come to socialize. So it's a daily chore to go and shop. And then while you're there, you talk to neighbors, you talk politics, you do whatever you want to do. And you can see they're happy. You know why that lady in the middle is laughing? Well, the reason she's laughing is I tried to talk to her in Spanish. And she responded me in perfect English. So that was had a lot of fun with that. Here's a golden pagoda in Yangon, Myanmar. Now I'm going to test you. I'm going to test you all now, and I want to hear the answers. What was the former name of Yangon, Myanmar? Oh, my heavens, I can't believe I'm not hearing anything. Rangoon, Burma. It was changed in 1979 when they had an upheaval there. This pagoda, this Buddhist pagoda, is encrusted with about 5,500 diamonds, 2,300 rubies, and the yellow that you see is all mostly gold leaf. So it's very showy and very noticeable. And I decided I had to get inside that place. And here I am inside. I am pouring water over a little statue to ensure long life. When I went in there, I found out that they had water stations for each day of the week. So if you knew the day of the week that you were born, you went to that station and you poured some water. Well, I didn't know what day I was born. So I asked the guide, what do I do? Well, there's a guy over there with a book, a buck, he'll tell you, $1, he'll tell you what day you were born and what your sign is. So I gave the guy $1 and he says, you're Mr. Tuesday and you're a lion. So, okay, I'm Mr. Tuesday. So I walked around and found Tuesday, and I found a little cup there, and the myth is, or the legend is, that you pour water 7 times on your little statue, and that will ensure long life. Were you counting with me? This is number 7. And I think it's worked. I'm still here. So I guess it improved long life. Anyway, it was a lot of fun. Let's jump across the ocean. This is the famous Iguazu Falls in Argentina. It's actually 275 separate falls over a 2-mile length of the Iguazu River, which borders Argentina and Brazil. And this one is called the Devil's Throat. The Devil's Throat is the name of this waterfall. I asked the guide about that, and he said that there was no truth to the rumor that it was named after some explorer's wife. That's what he told me. You saw the rainbow? That was happenstance. I did not see that rainbow when I took the picture, but it led into the next slide because this is the gold that I found at the end of the rainbow. This is a group of birders. Do you all know what birders are? I did not. So the 2 days I spent with them, I learned more about birds than I really cared to know, but they really are into this hobby. They travel around the world cataloging birds and trying to outdo each other incidentally. And a couple months ago, we had a lecture on birding here. How many were there? Anybody to that lecture? Yeah, okay. And our man upstairs, Gareth Williams, he's a birder, and he was one of the ones that presented that. So anyway, they were fun. Thankfully, I was only with them for 2 days, because that's all they wanted to do was talk about birds. Throngs of people at this famous river. Do you know where it is? Did I hear India? That's right, it is India, and it's the Ganges River. Ganges River is nearly 1,600 miles long and starts in the Himalayas and winds its way down through India to the Bay of Bengal in Bangladesh. And to Hindus, this is the most sacred river in the world. And here we have the Ganges River in Varanasi, a Hindu doing meditation beside the water. This is really serious stuff for them. There are as many as 30,000 cremations done at the border of the Ganges River every year. And then the ashes are spread on the waters and goes downstream to their ultimate life. That's the theory. So I watched this guy do, it looks like yoga to me, but it was some kind of meditation. And then he bathed in the pristine Ganges River. It is estimated that 5,000 people come daily to the Ganges River to go in and be immersed, to wash away their sins, and to ensure salvation. It looks pretty cool, yeah. 1950 model Chevrolet used as a taxi. All right, tell me where I saw this. Did I hear Cuba? If I heard Cuba, you were right. It's in Cuba. In 1959, the United States instituted an embargo on exportation of American cars, parts, or manuals to Cuba. So it became a cottage industry to restore and remodel 1950 era cars, okay? And they were used as taxis and escorting tourists. Marriages used it as a big business instead of limos. They'd have an old car. The tour I was on, our guide, I think there were 20 of us. She engaged about, I think, 9 or 10 of these old cars. We got in and we went down through the town of Havana, honking the horn and waving at the people, and they waved back. That was fun. This is a sidewalk cafe in Havana. I was on a tour, and somebody volunteered me to play with these guys, so they gave me maracas, and here I am. They invited me to join in, and I played one song, which I thought never was going to end. But I got a present. I got a drink, a free drink. And the free drink was a Cuba Libre. Have any of you heard of a Cuba Libre? It's made with rum and Coca-Cola and lime. And it's the national drink of Cuba. Every time I say rum and Coca-Cola and lime, I think of a song, World War II. Who sang it? Who sang rum and Coca-Cola? The Andrews Sisters, absolutely right. Let's jump across the Forbidden City in Beijing, China. Beijing has 23 million people. It's huge. And face masks there are routine because of the pollution, because they burn nothing but coal, or mostly coal, to generate electricity, and also for businesses. So given certain weather conditions, there's a lot of smog, particularly in the large cities. So a lot of people wear masks, and of course they all smoke too, and they all drive these little putt-putts that have spewing out stuff, so it's no wonder that they have smog there. But the former name of Beijing, who can tell me what the former name of Beijing was? Peking. You all remember that because you've had Peking duck somewhere along your line. Oh, this is a squatty potty in Shanghai, China. Shall we have some installed here? We ought to talk to somebody about that. I had never seen one of these. I don't know if you have before, but I had never seen one of these things, and I thought it was worth a picture. I'm not sure how you even use it, and I didn't bother to ask, because I didn't expect that I would ever use it. But what is sort of interesting to me is, on the upper right-hand corner, you see a no smoking sign. You have a no smoking sign in the John, and you go out and you've got the mask, and it just seemed very humorous to me. Okay, here's a country that's known for its castles and potatoes. Can you guess where that is? Ireland, absolutely right. Ireland is a fantastic country. I've probably been there at least 4 times, maybe 5. The thing that impressed me most about Ireland is the color green of the grass. I don't think I've ever seen that same color anywhere in the world except in Ireland. And that shade of green just is sort of like an emerald green. Now, I won't tell you much about Ireland, because if you want to know something about Ireland, then you ask Peg Hunt, because she's been there several times, and she can tell you more than you probably care to know about Ireland. You're welcome. Okay, where are we? Here we are. I'm still in Ireland, and here's the Blarney Stone at Blarney Castle, which was built in 1446, this castle. And this is made of limestone, and you can see I'm lying on my back to have this picture taken. And so I got to kiss the Blarney Stone. The legend says that if you kiss the Blarney Stone, you will be bestowed with the gift of gab. I'm sure that's just a myth. This South American country bears the name of its liberator shown here. Can anyone guess what country that would be? Bolivia, that's right, Bolivia. And it's Simon Bolivar. He was known as the liberator. This was in La Paz. He was an abolitionist in 1800s, early 1800s. He led the wars against Spain to liberate much of the northern territories of South America. And he obviously did a very good job of that. I was on a tour. This was really amazing. Here was a guy playing a panpipe atop a peak in the Andes. And he played this panpipe. I don't know how he got up there in the first place. I couldn't see any stairways or any way to get there. But anyway, he played this panpipe, and the music that came out just echoed through the hills, and it was mystical and aural. It was really pretty scheduled. And every time I see this picture, I say to myself, can I see him? Can I hear that? Yes, I can. I can. Every time I look at that picture. I can picture, in my own mind's eyes, Jack Klutz doing that. I really can. He could stand up there and blow a panpipe. I'm sure he could. I'm having trouble with this, and this is me, not you guys. This city is in a country where we lost a lot of young men fighting communism, and it's Vietnam, exactly. This is Saigon, 14 million people. I took this shot from the 5th floor restaurant of the Majestic Hotel. If I had been there earlier, that would have been nothing but rubble from the Vietnam War. But now Saigon is a bustling city and one of the United States' best trading partners. It's now called what? Ho Chi Minh City, correct. And here, as I walked around, I found 4 guys putting a mosaic together by hand, like a picture puzzle, in front of a new hotel that was going up. And I thought that was pretty interesting. And I wonder how long it took them to do that. And afterwards, I wondered, should I ever get back there, I will make sure that I will take a look at that. Okay. This is Sydney, Australia, and I'm atop the Harbour Bridge. In the background is the world-famous Sydney Opera House. When it was built and started in 1959, it was estimated to cost $7 million Australian dollars and take 4 years to build. It turned out it took 14 years to build and cost 107 million Australian dollars, and it was all because of local politics getting involved. And but now Sammy Davis Jr. performed here. Everybody was happy with him, Australians. There's no free admittance to this. You must pay to go on a tour or to see a show. And annually, they get 12 million visitors who actually enter this Sydney Opera House. Step on it. This is the Phuket Elephant Park in Thailand. What was the former name? Siam. And what do you think of when you say Siam? Anna and the King of Siam and Siamese twins, of course. I was escorting a tour here, and the guide asked for a volunteer for this, and guess who my group volunteered? So here I am, and I think Tom Meese would make a good candidate for this, don't you? I think Tom Meese could do a good job with this. Here I am in the British Virgin Islands with Osiris dolphins. I swam with them for a while, and just as I was ready to get out of the pool, our Osiris was there, and he whispered to me, "Stay for dinner, we're having fish." Nah. Taylor Ernst would have enjoyed doing this. Costa Rica rainforest zip line. I was fortunate to do zip lines about 3 or 4 times, but this was my first one. And they'd put you on a zip line and you'd go through the rainforest and land on a platform, then unhook you and put you on another one. There were 6 different stations that we went through on this trip. A couple behind me were newly married, and she said to him, "I'm not going on that zip line." She says, "You are going on that zip line." She says, "If I go on that line, I'm going to hate you for the rest of your life." But she went on. So I happened to see them after it was over, and she said, "I want to go back on the zip line again." So he let her go back on again. I thought that was sort of humorous. Looking down on Machu Picchu in Peru. Machu Picchu, Peru, is an Inca citadel, 8,000 feet above sea level. It was constructed in 1450 AD, and it was abandoned during the Spanish conquistadors' invasion around 1650. And it became overgrown, and it wasn't rediscovered until 1911 by an American historian, Hiram Brigham, and it is now a very, very popular tourist attraction and gets more people who love to go to Machu Picchu. Now, if you really want to know more about that, Steve and Carolyn Moyer have been there, and they can talk to you about that as well. Okay, Franz Joseph Glacier, New Zealand. This is about 10,000 feet in altitude. We went in there by helicopter. We didn't stay long, had a little lunch, and then flew back out. This glacier is about 7.5 miles long. And the reason I'm showing this is New Zealand is my absolute favorite country aside from the United States. If I had to leave this country for any reason, that's where I'd go. New Zealand, 5.5 million people. And not to be outdone, there's 5 sheep per person. And it's about the size of Colorado, and it's 1,000 miles long, north to south. But New Zealand is really, really a great place. Okay, I'm going to finish with this slide. This is the most unforgettable character I've ever met. Her name was Mrs. Doreen Myring, and she was from England. She always used to say, "You can remember my name, just point to my ring." She was one of 353 children that were put aboard a ship and sent to Cape Town, South Africa for the duration of World War II. Because of the heavy bombing in the London area, many of the families sent their children away from the London area. They went to northern England, they went to Scotland, they went to New Zealand, they went to Australia, they went to Canada, and they went to South Africa. And they didn't know who they were going to be. They had sponsors, so they weren't going to join family that they had there. They had no idea who they were going to be, sponsors were going to be, which I think is pretty daunting for a young 8, 9, 10-year-old person. And anyway, Doreen, now her quest was to travel back and forth between England and South Africa as much as she could to visit her family, her biological family, and her adopted family. And she would tell me stories about her childhood in South Africa and also England. And then I saw her maybe 4 or 5 times. She was a heavy traveler, but she really loved to travel. And she shared that story with me. And all, there were 2,700 children from the London area that were, quote unquote, farmed out just so they could get away from where the bombing was. Just thought it was pretty cool. Okay, your turn. I've talked a lot about my questions about the shipboard experiences as a host and my traveling. And so now I'm open to take some questions. I think I'll be able to answer them. But if not, I'll just lie. So Eric and Michelle have microphones. If you put your hand up, he'll come around and you can ask a question. I don't know what's going on. Someone had a question? No one's going to ask me about the lady that got me on the elevator at midnight, are they? No.
All right, go ahead, Paul.
Paul?
Yeah, Jim, it's allowed. What kind of shoe allowance were you allowed on the ship? Or did they give you allowance for clothes or anything?
No, but that's a good question because I can parlay it into, we had to provide our own uniforms and shoes. I think I probably went through a half a dozen pair of shoes, maybe more because I had black and white dance shoes, and that's where we danced about 6 hours a day, 5 to 6 hours a day, and of course we had to have dance shoes, and in the evenings we had dance shoes to dance with. So good question. I'm sure it was a half a dozen at least. Someone else?
Here I come.
Just a minute.
Sure.
What cruise lines did you work for? You said 7, I think?
I said 7 different ones, right? I'll try to remember them all. I was on the QE2, so that would be Cunard. I was on a bunch of crystal ships. Incidentally, I'll just back off. We all wore badges, and that was to let everybody know who we were and what we could do for them as guests. If they saw someone with a badge, you just ask a question, and we were obligated to solve that problem if they had one. Okay, Regent, Silver Seas. What one were you on? Celebrity. I was on Celebrity. So that's 5 of them that I remember. First one was Royal Cruise Line, which is now defunct. Right. No, that's a different cruise line. A mic.
Were you ever on Norwegian?
Yes, I was one time on Norwegian, and that's the only one I ever was on that I got paid for. I do remember that.
Jim, what is it that
makes you love New Zealand out of all the places you've been?
I'm sorry?
What is it about New Zealand?
Well, it's a few things. New Zealand has an indigenous population. About 8% of it is Maori, okay? And every student in New Zealand must take Maori. So they were a bilingual country, which I thought was very inclusive. That gets the people there. The people were fabulous. The food was excellent. The wine is as good as any I tasted. So, and it's just the ambiance of my time there and the people I met there that made me feel so good about it. And that's why I decided that it's not easy to get there. If you want to work there, you have to get a report card, and if you don't get a certain score, you can't work there because they need those jobs, okay, for their own people. So that's how they limit people migrating to New Zealand.
Jim, I wanted to ask, getting back to, you said you were only paid by the one line. Did you have nice accommodations?
Okay, good question. I didn't even plant that question, but that's a really great question. Here's the deal. We got free transportation to and from my home. We got free visas. We had free room and board, of course, and we got to eat with the passengers, as you saw, so it was really upscale. We did not get paid. No, it was an exchange of services, is what we call it, exchange of services. And except for Norwegian, and I don't understand to this day why I got paid for that one, but I didn't argue. But I got a 1099, I remember that. I had to submit it or declare it. As best I can figure, there were about 200 of us over the Spirit 23 years that I became aware of. So it was a pretty limited group compared to, you know, I've been on with as few as 2 hosts and as many as 12. So it always wasn't the same. It was depend on the ship and the passenger makeup, how many hosts they would bring on board. Crystal was the one that, my favorite line, although it wasn't my starter, because I did a lot of work with them, Crystal Cruises. Someone else?
You're saying Crystal is now defunct?
No, the old Royal Cruise Line that I started with was defunct. Any more questions?
Here.
Oh,
Where and what was your favorite food, cuisine, on your whole 89-year trip?
I would say lamb cutlets in New Zealand. Lamb cutlets in New Zealand. And it isn't the kind of cutlet, the name lamb cutlets, we would call lamb chops, okay? But in New Zealand, they called them lamb cutlets. That was my favorite food. Right there?
Did you ever get seasick?
Twice.
That's my question.
Twice. I got seasick coming across the North Atlantic, and that lasted, we had to divert for 48 hours to get around the storm, but I still got sick. That definitely was motion sickness, okay? The second time I got sick was in the western part of the Gulf of Mexico. And it wasn't, I thought it was food, I didn't know what it was, but I was so sick that I didn't care if I lived or died. I was laid up for about 5 days, I guess. But that was the only time of all my 175 cruises that I got sick, those 2 times.
Can you describe your luxury suite?
Oh, okay, good. This is, it all depends. I've been in a suite that was my own, which had its own anteroom. That was with Silver Seas, by myself. Didn't have to share. Many times we had to share, but we always had a passenger cabin. We never were with the crew. We had a passenger cabin, and I would say that depending on how many people were on the ship, I'd say 60% of the time we'd end up by ourselves. The rest of the time, 40%, we'd have to share with another host, one of my colleagues. So that was pretty good. Oh, incidentally, we got our laundry done too for nothing. I forgot to mention that. She can't. I want to repeat the question here. Margaret asked me if I ever had a bad roommate. Yes. On my very last cruise, I asked to be moved from my cabin. And the guy thereafter wouldn't talk to me, wouldn't even acknowledge me, but he was terrible. He was up at 2 and 3 in the morning doing stuff. Used to sit in his chair with no clothes on, 3 in the morning. Yeah, he was terrible. And so and he says, "You didn't have to leave." I said, "Yes, I did." So.
Jim, I wanted to ask about the land touring aspect. Were those tours associated with the cruise ship, or was that a separate thing that you did?
Both. Sometimes it was, we would be an escort for the cruise ship on a bus trip, okay? And those were some of the scenes that you saw with the 2 girls from Japan. That was on a bus trip. But some of these others were my own travel, okay? Because I traveled quite extensively on my own, particularly during and after I retired from the cruise lines. Yeah, so some of these pictures are not as part of a group, but many of them are.
Jim, I have a question here for Yolanda. She wants to know, have you ever been married?
Yes. I'm going to divert a minute to tell you that, and this is pretty important. We had to sign a contract that was it was pretty restrictive. If we were caught interacting with any of the passenger guests or crew off at the next station, next port, home on your own. Okay, to my knowledge, only 2 guys were put off the ship in the 23 years that I hosted. One for interacting with a passenger lady, and incidentally, they ended up getting married. So he didn't care. And the other was sort of interesting, one who interacted with a crew member, and I never heard about what that was all about. So.
Was there ever any female?
Sure.
No, wait, I don't know how to ask the question, but was there females that provided the same service that you did for males that were traveling alone?
It was tried twice, and it was an abject failure twice.
Oh.
And the reason was that if you had a gentleman come on their own, unattached gentleman, let's say, they would be in the 55 to 60-year-old group, okay? And they would seek out a lady passengers who was similarly unattached, and that's where. So if you brought on a young lady to dance with them, they didn't do anything. And then when the times that I was not on when this happened, but the time it happened, the first time it happened, the guys didn't. There was no guys to dance with, so the ladies just sat there. Now here they are sitting, and the other 6 guys are dancing. You know, so it was sort of an interesting kind of a deal.
So we have time for one more question.
Okay.
Jim, how many days a year on average were you on board ship?
That's good. Good question. I've been on as few as 14 days, and I've been on as many as 78 continuously. That's what you meant? So I don't know how many average per, I'd guess maybe, if I had to average it, I'd say maybe 40% of my time. For 23 years, I was on ships. I was on the Crystal Symphony on a world cruise. It was only half of the world cruise.
Last one. Okay, Mary, you're up. Last one.
I just wonder about this, Jim. How many days were land days where you had time to interact with the natives of the countries you visited?
Okay, that's a good question. For instance, when we sailed from Los Angeles to Tahiti, very few days, land days. As a matter of fact, if we went up the east coast we were in port every day. So when we got there, we would interact. This was worth 10% every place you went if you wore your badge on land, okay? So, and I always used to try to interact with the You mean in any one stretch of time? Mostly it was, you know, if a half hour would be a lot of time. Yep, we got to know the passengers very well, and they got to know us pretty well. So that's what that was all about. Well, you have some business to do? Okay,
so everybody grab those blue tickets that Susan was able to give you earlier. I'm going to shake it up, and I'm going to get someone to pick. You know what? Yolanda, she was the first one here. I think Yolanda should be the first one to pick since she was here at 1 o'clock. Right, Yolanda? I want you not to peek. Just grab one and give me it. Yeah, they're all numbered. Just one. All right, give me that. That's it. All right, everybody has their ticket. All right, you ready? Here we go. Okay. Number 566090. All right.
Do we have a winner?
566090.
Back there.
All right. Congratulations. This is
For
This is a
for
copy
those
of
of you who
Jim's
didn't
book.
win, there's a copy of this book in the library, and if you talk to Jackie Ellenberg, she can ferret that out for you. And I want to give you a big thank you from the man who danced around the world. I want to thank Michelle and Eric and Jerry, who's doing the 199 thing, and Susan in the back for helping me. They did a great job. And I want to thank you for coming to listen to my story. I'd like to finish with one thing. If it turns out this has been the highlight of your day, then I apologize. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, everybody.